I'm Paul Bucciarelli, and I'm a business consultant with the Duquesne University Small Business Development Center. Today I'm going to take you through a business planning tutorial, and we're going to reference Duquesne's Guide to Writing a Business Plan. I think you'll find it helpful. Alright, so what we are looking at now are screenshots of Duquesne's Guide to Writing a Business Plan. And we're going to focus in on key areas of the business guide. We're going to start with the business plan outline. And what I would tell you is, as you look at this page, is the bolded areas are the key sections, and we'll go into some detail on each of those. I'd also tell you that a lot of our small business bankers are very familiar with this outline, and so that may give you a leg up when you go to try to sell your idea in terms of getting a loan. So let's take a look at the business plan outline and some of the important sections in the plan. You'll notice that executive summary is the very first bullet. One of the things that's a little counterintuitive is you write the business summary, the executive summary, at the end of the process when everything else is done. The other key sections are company, products and services, marketing, production, and financial. What I would tell you up front is that the two areas that a lender looks at most quickly are your financial statements and your executive summary. If they don't have time to look at anything else, they'll definitely look at those two. So those are important areas for you to focus on. We're now going to look at page 15, which is the company section of the plan. Now this is critical because this is the area of the plan where you explain why your company exists. What's the problem that you're solving or the need that you're fulfilling? And this should be the part of the presentation of the business plan that explains that in some level of detail. So for example, what's the history of the company? Why are you creating the company? What's your vision and mission? What kind of goals do you have for yourself? You can personalize this to some extent because it is your company, and again, that'll make the business plan a little more humanized. But this is the starting point where I direct all of my clients at the beginning of our sessions. The next key section of the plan is the products and services section of the plan. This is where you explain what it is that you're going to make or sell. And one of the key aspects of your products or services is, what is your USP? What is your unique selling proposition? In other words, why are people going to come to your either physical location or web location, and what distinguishes you from the competition? One of the things that I tell my clients is, if you are just a business of convenience, if someone else opens up something that's a little more convenient, then you may be losing business in that sense. So what are the key attributes of what you're making or selling? What benefits will your customers experience when they use or buy your products? What are the talents and skills that you have and that you bring to the table in terms of your business? In other words, if you have great experience or you have great education backing this up, this is where you should also talk about that as well. What are your special skills or talents? Marketing is a critical component to any business plan. One of the things that I would mention here is that the SBDC has tremendous research capabilities. So if you are trying to understand a little more about your industry, what the trends are, what the complementary products are, work with your SBDC to get you in-depth research. We can do great research on your behalf that will be very important in your business plan. It will add credibility to it as well. One other thing I'll mention as we're in this part of the plan is, if you are local especially, I'd encourage you to get a Carnegie Library card, because it will open up a number of resources to you that would otherwise have to be paid for. Very important here. Let's take a little deeper dive into marketing strategy and the kinds of things that are important in a business plan. So if you are in a business, you probably need to find out, what are the trends? Is the business growing or declining? What are the reasons for these trends? What kind of innovations are there out there? What does the customer base look like? And most importantly, what does your customer profile look like? What are the target markets you're going after? What are the demographics in that particular space? And how do the buyers behave? Those are the kinds of things that you can identify with research. For example, if you have a brick and mortar location, we can help you put together a radius or drive time from that particular dot on the map and tell you who's in that area. What's the geography look like? How many customers are out there? What are their buying characteristics? These are the kinds of things that will then help you determine what piece of that market can I actually capture with my business or service. So very valuable information in terms of trying to especially go after a loan. One of the things I would mention here as well is that your business plan should not be all blue sky. In other words, you have to look at what are the possible threats or things that could help you, potentially cause you not to succeed. Because if you go in with all good information, the lender is going to think you haven't really objectively looked at the marketing piece of this in enough depth. You will also be able, hopefully, from this marketing information to do some sales projections that will lend credibility to your plan as well. So you've done the marketing research now, and where do you go from here? So how do you use this information, and what is your marketing strategy going to be? So in our current world, most people are creating a marketing strategy that includes a combination of social media and traditional media. So for example, while newspapers, radio, TV may be declining as a percentage of marketing activity, they're still important in traditional markets. And at the same time, you need a social media strategy as well that leverages things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and what have you. One of the key aspects of a marketing strategy this day, especially one that's web-based, is to optimize your search engine. In other words, try to make sure that your website, your products or services pop up early in a web search, and we can point you to specialists who can help you optimize your search as part of your marketing campaign as well. Let's talk a little bit about management. If you are the owner and entrepreneur, you are one of the resources of the company. You are a management person. So many times it's important to include your resume or the resume of your partners as well, anyone in key management. And this will reinforce the fact that you either have a great educational background, you have a lot of actual work experience, you have the skills that will enable you to succeed. So important to have there. If you have employees or plan to have employees, you want to go into some level of detail around how many people you will employ, what their job titles look like, the job descriptions, the required skill sets. Finally, you may want to look at professional support. In other words, if you are starting a business, it's very likely you may have engaged an attorney, an accountant, a financial advisor, an insurance carrier. All of that becomes part of your team and again lends credibility to your business plan. Now let's take a look at the financial statements. And as I mentioned earlier, lenders are very, very focused on the numbers. And a lot of very good business ideas sometimes don't succeed because of a lack of understanding of the numbers. So as much passion as you have for an idea, it has to still be supported by the numbers in order to become financially viable. And the business plan needs to be very robust in terms of the financial statements, and we have great tools at the SBDC that can help you do that. This is the part of the plan where you talk about how much money you need and how you plan to use that money. One of the early homework assignments I give to my clients is to go back and, as a first step, put together your startup costs. In other words, what dollars do you have to expend before you're able to either open the door or go live on a website, and get a very clear understanding of those numbers on the before you actually start the business itself. The other piece would be, where are you getting these funds? What's your source of the funds? So it can be anything from your own personal equity to a bank loan to an investment from a venture capitalist. And secondly, how are you going to use those funds? So the sources of your funds need to equal the uses of your funds. And you'll put together a table that shows this in some degree of detail, and it will explain how your money is going to be spent. The other thing you need to do in this section is put together your projections for your revenues. And this is where people do get a little hung up because it's hard to sometimes create these assumptions around how you plan to create revenue. Now, if you have any historical basis, that's great because it's grounded in some real life history. But most people starting a new business don't have historical basis, so you have to come up with assumptions. And I'll use a very simple analogy around a restaurant. If you know that you're going to serve X number of people a night at $12 per dinner, and you're going to do this 6 nights a week, it becomes relatively simple math in terms of how you create that assumption. If you remember your finance classes, one of the things you also want to calculate is what is your break-even point? In other words, how many widgets or how many services do you need to sell to, at a minimum, cover your costs? And so that beyond that, everything becomes a gross profit, if you will. And if you're going to go after a loan, you're going to have to include a lot of your own historical income. In other words, you're going to have to show past tax returns. You may be asked to put together a personal financial statement. So that will all be a part of this business plan that, again, tries to tell your story in its entirety and tries to provide the most convincing view of the potential success for your company. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful today. This is, again, the planning guide that I was speaking from today. If you reach out to the Duquesne Small Business Development Center, we will see that you get a copy of this. Ideally, if you're thinking of starting a business, you would also attend one of our workshops on business startup essentials. So I want to thank you for your time today. I enjoyed presenting to you, and good luck in your future endeavors.